So this is how I start most of my vector work, is to lay out something pretty detailed in pencil. If it's something you can do with symmetry, it's usually really a great way to start because then you're only doing half the drawing. I'll typically also go ahead and put in some lines to indicate shadows or highlights. Now in pencil it's a little bit easier just to kind of noodle that stuff out before I start really doing the vector work. So you can see here that I'm starting the vector process, and usually what I like to do is just put the drawing itself on one layer and then create another layer for the vector work. I usually use a pretty thin line. It's something that I picked up from watching Von Glitchka do his work. It's like a 0.225 or a 0.125 depending on like kind of the scale of the line work. And I'll usually just build the shape, starting with the outside details. Sometimes I'll build the corners and stuff manually, and other times you'll see me using the corner tool to soften those edges pretty frequently. I kind of am part of that school of thought that I like to get it right the first time, rather than putting in the points and then editing the points to make them perfect later. Some people work a little bit faster, I think, using that method, but I just tend to find this, if it's not looking right during the creation of it, then I don't feel like it'll ever look right. So as I continue going, I'm using a pink just to contrast really brightly against the chart, the line work there. I don't typically dim the line work too much, other than putting it on a template layer, which I think automatically gives you like a 50% dim. And ultimately what I'm trying to do is capture the same kind of feeling that I get from my pencil work. I'm a fairly precise renderer. So when it comes to doing the vector work, I want to capture that character of the thick and thin, of the softened edges. I like to think of them as friendly shapes, like kind of circular type shapes, not a ton of sharp edges unless it's like intended to be. Even like, spikes or something, or like the point of a dagger will be kind of rounded. Ultimately just because it looks, has more character. It looks more interesting, and it kind of fits my style a bit better. And you can see with the Bezier curve, I'm trying to fiddle with the idea of you take the curves and you're doing like almost just only horizontal or vertical handles. That's something I saw just quite recently. It doesn't work great in all situations, but it keeps you from having a really messy board. If you're working with a lot of high curves, you can really simplify things just down to, hey, is this curved, down, or is it curved left and right? So it really kind of organizes your artboard. And you'll see here that I've built a guide into the center point of the drawing, and I'm trying to only connect lines to that guide so that there's open space there. And the reason for that is because once I've done the left side, I can go ahead and, with all those line handles and shapes, and duplicate that, reflect it to the right. And sometimes I do, I'll draw on the right, sometimes I'll draw on the left. It doesn't really matter which way you do it, just which, side you want to work on first. And this can even work if you're doing an asymmetrical drawing, but if maybe the basis is going to be symmetrical. Yeah, I've seen it quite a bit in some sketchbooks where some artists will go ahead and will draw like half a face. And what it tends to do is you don't have to worry about symmetry, so you tend to get a really nice result. Maybe it's not really drawing, but it works really well for this type of work, especially vector stuff, because ultimately you're looking for mathematical left and right symmetry perfection. And you can see here I've already joined the two sides. We've got one shape here, and I'm working with the pathfinder tools to cut out those shapes so that we have separate pieces for everything. And so we should have some solids here. Now I with this one, I cut things up quite a bit and noodled with like where the shadows go and how we're going to handle the color gradients and what the highlights are going to look like. So you'll see me kind of do the pathfinder, start splitting things up, and then kind of rejoin things where I just didn't like what the results were. Like right here, this curve was supposed to be reflective of like a shadow, but looking at it, in the drawing, it just seemed to be too thick. I'm going to go ahead and step off the recording and let some music play while I noodle through the colors and the rest of the vector work. And I'll rejoin you after the cut to take a look at kind of the finished thing. And the application of this design is kind of a tattoo for a character I'm working on. All right. Okay, so I'm back here, and you can see that we've got the finished Awesome Bomb tattoo. Now, a little bit of the ray work and kind of the Gaussian blur and painting that in, obviously I did in Photoshop. And it's not like I'm trying to hide what it is, just I felt like I was losing the kind of like the straightforwardness of the video with all that fuddling around. It took me quite a while to get this something I liked. And even with this, I'm like, I'm not terribly in love with all the elements. There's some issues with some overlap of the text, but for what it was going to have to do, it worked. So if we look, we went ahead and took the tattoo and we applied it to this character who is going to be kind of like a sci-fi-esque, like kind of punk inspired, almost bounty hunter type, or I don't know. It might be just some runaway from the law. I've got some like robots and stuff that I'm working on that'll be chasing her that I did in 3D, and I'm gonna render out either in Illustrator or in Photoshop. So, she's kind of iconoclastic. It's gonna be covered in tattoos, and you can see they've already got, a skull with a sword and the wings, and then a little skull pattern there, and then the little. Felt like the pink lines, the pink rays, made kind of a cool statement coming up onto the upper part of her shoulder. So I went ahead and applied them there. Unfortunately, this it felt like when I was drawing it, I had a ton of room for all these little tattoos and stuff, and so I have like, probably like 15 or so. And now that I'm putting it together and I've got the vector work already done, it's like I don't want to destroy kind of the nice clean lines of the vector of the character by overlaying too many tattoos. So I'm trying to strike a balance, where stuff goes. So far pretty happy with kind of like how the shading goes and everything like that. And so that's kind of how the tattoo is placed, and I'm really happy with it ultimately. Thanks for checking it out. I'm probably going to go ahead and clean it up a little bit more and put it up on Redbubble. The link is in the description below. I've got some other stuff up there, some other graphic design stuff. And if this is your first time checking out one of my videos, thanks. Feel free to like and favorite or whatever. Subscribe. I'm gonna try to get a couple of these out every 2 weeks or so, as kind of freelance work and regular work allows. Again, thanks, and feel free to make any comments regarding the art itself, or any questions you might have regarding graphic design, freelancing, or any of the programs I'm using to get these results. All right, have a good one.